Hello and welcome to this episode of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016 Service Provider Organizations under the IBC. When we talk about the service provider organizations under the IBC, there are a lot of things to talk about it. The Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code addresses the complex processes of the various insolvency processes. In order to complete this process successfully and efficiently, it involves the role of various organizations, professionals, agencies, the regulator, and the adjudicating authority. Today, I will talk about the various types of the organizations under the IBC. I will mainly cover the what is the service provider organizations, what is the need of service provider organizations under the code, and we will also talk about the role of these organizations and their outcome. The Insolvency Bankruptcy Code envisages the two-tier regulatory system. It is also called co-regulations mechanisms, wherein the more than one involved bodies are involved in regulating exercise. In IBC, the independent regulator, such as Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, is placed at first tier, who is responsible to devise the regulations. The IBBI, Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India, making the regulations. It is also called as a subordinate legislations. Often it is called as a delegated legislations. In second tier, there are various professional bodies and organizations who are entrusted with the specific regulatory task, and they are responsible to discharge those regulatory tasks. These organizations are also called as a frontline regulator because they are direct interface with the stakeholders. These frontline regulators are entrusted with the specific task, and they are often be professional body, industrial organizations, or utility organizations. These frontline organizations are called as service provider organizations. These regulatory mechanisms is important for the IBC 2016 because there are a huge number of processes involved and the large number of insolvency professionals are involved, which cannot be regulated by the independent regulator alone. So these different kind of organizations are necessary, and the co-regulations wherein the more than one organizations involved into regulating the specific task. The Insolvency Bankruptcy Code has come into effect in 2016, and the IBBI is established in October 2016. Immediately, the very first step was to establish the organizations, because without these as organizations, it would not be possible to roll out the implementation of IBC. The IBBI has expeditiously took the actions immediately after its establishment, and the first steps which was taken by the IBBI is to establish the service provider organizations and to start the functionings of the insolvency process as soon as possible. These efforts made possible implementation of immediately after its enactment. The Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India has established three insolvency professional agencies immediately within the 1 month after its establishment, and started the functioning of the insolvency process. The IBC recognizes two types of service provider organizations. First is insolvency professional agencies, and second is information utility. So far there are three insolvency professional agencies have been registered with the Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India, and one information utility has been registered with the IBBI. Apart from that, there are registered valuer organizations who are established under the valuer rules prescribed under the Companies Act 2013. IBBI, Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India, has been entrusted with the additional responsibility to regulate the registered valuer professions, and under that authority, the Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India is discharging the responsibilities towards the establishment of registered valuer organizations, as well as to regulate the registered valuer professions. As of now, there are 16 registered valuer organizations have been registered with the IBBI, and there are many more. After the 5 years, this much state organizations have been registered, but there is no embargo to enter into any of the organizations who could register with the Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India and can take the responsibilities of the service provider organizations. Now, let us understand fundamental thing, what is the need of these service provider organizations under the IBC. The Insolvency Bankruptcy Code recognizes the various insolvency process such as corporate insolvency process, fresh start process, individual insolvency process. These insolvency process are very complex and are conducted by the class of regulator, class of insolvency professionals. These insolvency professionals are responsible to conduct the entire insolvency process. They also takes the charge of corporate debtor. Now, these important responsibilities is to be discharged by the insolvency professionals. This while we recognize the need of the insolvency professionals and the crucial responsibilities of the insolvency professional under the insolvency process, there are various challenges associated with it. Because the insolvency professional is a new professionals which has been recognized under the IBC, there could be possible that there will be large number of insolvency professionals exist, and it would not be possible for the one agency like one independent regulator who can discharge and who can regulate all insolvency professionals together. So there is a need. So those all insolvency professionals to regulate such a large number of insolvency professionals, there is a need for the other organizations. I would list out the challenges like who will ensure the education requirement of insolvency professionals, and who will certify and authorize insolvency professional for taking this assignment. Apart from that, the conduct of the insolvency professionals is also to be important and to be monitored by the regulator. So in order to address these challenges, the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code has envisages a concept of insolvency professional agencies. These insolvency professional agencies are recognized under Section 319 of the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code 2016. These insolvency professional agencies are responsible for specific role of regulating the insolvency professionals. These roles are granting membership, lay down the standards of the professional conduct. Apart from that, there is a continuous monitoring of the members and of course the protection of insolvency professionals. Then the suspend or cancel the membership of insolvency professionals and redressal of grievances, publishing information to ensure the transparency. All these roles have been assigned to the insolvency professional agencies. These roles broadly classified as a quasi-legislative functions, executive functions and quasi-judicial functions. Next service provider organizations is information utilities. This is also important pillar of the IBC 2016. Why there is a need for the information utilities under the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code? The insolvency process is to be initiated under the code once there is an occurrence of default. So the code envisages the initiation of the insolvency process on occurrence of default and on non-repayment of debt. The default is defined under the code. The default of payment of debt is called the financial information also. The financial information includes debt and default of the default both. Now, while starting the initiations of the insolvency process, one of the important milestone is to ascertain the occurrence of default, because the corporate debtor must have taken a large number of loans, large number of debts, and there could be a large number of transactions. Now it would not be possible for for any independent agencies or the corporate debtors or the creditors to establish that there is an occurrence of default from such a large number of records and transactions. In order to another reason is that the IBC is one of the objective of the IBC is to complete the insolvency process within the time bound. So even if there is a need to establish the occurrence of default, it is to be completed within the short period of time. and that expeditious verifications of the occurrence of default would require a specific organizations or the specific entity who can only work on the information utilities, financial information establishment and its authentications. So in order to ascertain the financial informations, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016 recognizes the concept of information utilities. Under section 21(3) of the Insolvency Code 2016, the information utilities has been recognized, and that information utilities would address the ascertaining the occurrence of default, which is a force of evidence, and the occurrence of the default in expeditious manner. Apart from that, there is a necessary, while the insolvency process starts, there are a large number of stakeholders which are affected because of that insolvency process. Once one creditor will start the insolvency process, but the other creditors may not be aware of the initiation of those insolvency process or even the default of the payment by the record of default. So in order to ensure the asymmetry, in order to remove the asymmetry of the information among the stakeholders, there is a need to have a dissemination of this financial information among the other stakeholders. So information utilities has been assigned with the additional role of disseminating the informations among the stakeholders. So broadly, this concept is a very novel concept, and it is a very important for completions of the insolvency process as quickly as possible within the time bound manner as mandated under the code. So with this background, the information utilities has been assigned with the accepting electronic informations, and of course the safe and accurate recording of financial informations, authenticating and verifying the financial informations, and providing the access to informations to the other stakeholders who have been specified by the IBBI. So this role of information, while information utilities will disseminate the financial informations, it would provide all the stakeholders, and it would also ensure it will also record the record of default of the financial informations, so that initial the insolvency process can be started as soon as possible as envisaged under the code. Next, service provider organizations is a registered valuer organizations. This registered valuer organization is not been envisaged under the code, but it is under the rules prescribed under the Companies Act 2013. To this code, Companies Act 2013 recognizes the registered valuer for the valuation of assets. Now, why there is a need for the registered valuer organizations, particularly in the IBC and in context with the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code? Insolvency process requires the valuation of assets of the corporate debtor. This valuations is to be done by is a specialized job, and to be conducted by the special educated professionals who are trained in valuations of the assets. So without that valuation of the assets, it would not be possible to roll over the insolvency process. So that is why the Companies Act 2013 and the rules prescribed thereunder recognizes the valuer, that is called the registered valuer. Now, while we recognize the registered valuer, there is a need and challenges involved into this. First is who will ensure the education requirement of those valuers, and who will certify the registered valuer. So those requirement is to be addressed under the Companies Act 2013 and the rules. So for that purpose, the rules and this prescribed under the Companies Act 2013 recognize the registered valuer organizations who is responsible to grant the membership to registered valuer, and the laying code of conduct to promote the valuation profession. Apart from that, there is a responsibility of monitoring of members, conduct of educational courses, and addressing the grievances and the continuous educations of the registered valuer. So these responsibilities has been assigned to the registered valuer organizations. This is a unique service provider organizations who has been regulated by the Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India. So by and large, there are three different kind of service provider organizations which we talked about. First is insolvency professional agencies, second is information utilities, and third is the registered valuer organizations. And all three organizations have a crucial and important role in completions of the insolvency process. It is one of the pillar of the entire IBC systems. Otherwise, because without the service provider organizations, it would not be possible to roll out the insolvency process. Now, while talk about the service provider organizations and their roles, this is a very important statutory role they are discharging towards the towards the insolvency process. Now, who can become the registered service provider organizations? What are the eligibility criteria for registrations? So, IBC 2016 and the legislative framework which has been specified for the insolvency professional agencies are covered under the IBC 2016 sections 199 to 205 of the IBC 2016s are addressing the regulatory legislative framework of the insolvency professional agencies and the insolvency professional agencies regulation 2016 specified by the Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India and the model bylaws and governing board of insolvency professional agencies regulation 2016. This legislative framework regulates the insolvency professional agencies. These legislative frameworks also specify that who we can become the insolvency professional agencies. Eligibility criteria to become the insolvency professional agencies has been specified under the 2016 Insolvency Professional Agencies regulations. It laid down the certain criteria. The first criteria is the company registers under Section 8 of the Companies Act 2013. The another criteria is the minimum net worth of those organizations which are intended to become the IPAs is rupees 10 crore and the paid up share capital of rupees 5 crore. The maximum shareholding by any person is 5%, but there are certain exceptions. In case of stock exchange, depositories, bank companies, insurance companies and the public finance institutions. So there is shareholding can increase up to 15%, and in case of central, state and statutory regulator, it can be increased up to the 100%. So board of another requirement is the board of director should be fit and proper persons and not under the control of any persons resident outside the India. So those who meet this eligibility criteria can be apply for the insolvency professional agencies, and they can registers with the Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India. Another service provider organizations, information utilities. Who can become the information utilities to discharge the statutory role under the IBC 2016? The information utilities legislative framework has been specified, has been mandated under the section 209 to 216 of the code. Apart from that, the regulations specified by the Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India 2017 and the guidelines for technical standard for the performance of the core services and other services under the IBBI regulation 2017. All these three statutory instruments and the code specify the legal framework of the information utilities, which also mandated that who eligibility criteria for the information utilities. Now, who can become the information utilities? There are certain eligibility criteria have been specified under the regulations. It says that the company registers as a public company and who is having a minimum net worth of rupees 50 crore and paid up share capital of rupees 5 crore. Persons holding more than 5% of its share capital is fit and proper persons, and there should no requirement of not under the control of any person resident outside India. So those who fulfill this criteria and having a core experience of working in the financial informations, dealing with the financial informations, are best suitable to be registered with the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. Now, third is registered valuer organizations. Who can become the registered valuer organizations? The requirement of registered valuer organizations have been specified under the Companies Act 2013 and the rules prescribed under the Companies Act. It says that the company registers under Section 8 or 25 of the Companies Act 2013 having a sole object of dealing with the matters relating to regulations of valuers of an asset class or asset classes, and it is a professional institute established by an act or parliament enacted for the purpose of regulation of a professions. So those organizations who fulfill this criteria can be eligible for registered value organizations. And the authority which has been presently, it is the Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India, who is empowered to give the registrations to registered value organizations. Now, if you can see the after the 2016, there are 5 years have been completed, and various service provider organizations are in force, and they are discharging their statutory roles. Now, what is the outcome of the service provider organization? This is also important for us when we talk about the service provider organizations. What we achieved so far. So, if we can have a few quick look on the figures which are there on the screen. The number of registered IPAs are 3 as of now, and they are promoted by the ICAI, ICSI, and ICMM. If you can see, look at the numbers of the members of those insolvency professional agencies, it's almost 4,000 registered members of insolvency professional agencies, and the insolvency professional agencies are only agencies which is designated the insolvency professionals and to undertake the assignment. So that designations, what insolvency professional agencies are designated by issuing the authorized for assignments, that is called the AFAs. The AFAs which have been issued to those members who can only undertake the assignment as insolvency professionals. Those who are not possessing the AFAs are not eligible to undertake the assignment. Now, those monitoring and all those things are also undertaken by the IPAs, and which is a quite huge responsibilities with the IPAs to ensure that nobody should have a valid invalid AFA can undertake the assignments. As of now, there are 3,987 active registers enrolled with the IPAs, distributed among all 3 IPAs. Now, next is information utilities. Information utilities stores and authenticate the financial informations. The important outcome of the information utilities is to have a records of default and the debt records. So, what is the volume of the debt records which they have, and how many number of records of default they have issued represents their outcome and achievement since inception up to 31st March 2022. If you can see the figures of financial creditors and operational creditors which have been registered with the information utilities, there is a huge number of amount of underlying debt, around 145 lakh 1 crores in respect to the financial creditors, and the operational creditors it is around 42,894 crores amount of underlying debt have been registered with the information utilities as on 31st March 2022. Apart from that, there is a records of default which has been issued by the information utilities, which is also a very important to initiate the insolvency process. The insolvency process, the commencement depends on the records of default and issued by the information utilities, and which has been recognized as evidence. So one of the achievement of the information utilities represent by the how many number of loans records which has been authenticated and the records of default issued by the information utilities. As on 31st March 22, one of the only information utilities, NESLs, has issued 2,98,751 records of default, and in case of the operational creditors, there are 833 records of defaults have been issued by the information utilities. So I can broadly say there is a good achievement of the service provider organizations. Apart from that, there is registered valuer organizations also regulating the registered valuers. So there are also 4,600 plus individuals and 63 entities have been registered as a valuer, and they are discharging their role of registered valuers. So this, if we can see the broadly outcome of all three service provider organizations, it is quite impressive, and all the service provider organizations are within the 5 years have achieved a huge number of in case of insolvency professional agencies, they have registered with a huge number of members, and the information utilities also registers a lot of huge number of records of default, and the registered valuer organizations also, there are a large number of registered valuers have been registered with the RVOs, registered value organizations. So these are the broadly I can say it's a good achievement in terms of the service performance of the service provider organizations during the last 5 years. And this is not the stop, because the IBC has completed 5 years, and there are many more years to come, and there are many insolvency process have been is yet to start. So those will come under the way, and these service provider organizations will effectively and efficiently discharge their roles. Okay. So apart from that, I want to announce one more aspect. Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India is organizing a third national online quiz on Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016. This quiz is proposed to organize from 16th April 2022 to 15th May 2022. There are three prizes in this quiz. First is 1 lakh rupees, second is 50,000, and third is 25,000. And apart from that, there are 10 consolation prizes of 10,000 each for next 10 best performance. One can take this quiz from the any of the media, like a phone, website, and any other media. And apart from that, there is a certificate for participation also will be issued by the Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India. So thank you so much for patient hearing, and if you have any queries, you can write to us for any further queries. Thank you.